love backpacking because it gives me opportunities to socialize like nothing else at home. Unlike backpacking where you could meet different sorts of people and cultures, at home, you are usually only limited to close-knit people within your own circle. One of the people I met during my backpacking adventures is Joshua. We met each other in Thailand and have been backpacking together since. I am one of those kinds of thrifty backpackers who have to budget my resources because I don't have a regular income in Maine. Of course, my lifestyle played a big part in that. It's very hard to have a day job when you are traveling a lot. Joshua taught me everything I know about being a thrifty backpacker. For example, he introduced me to staying in cheap hostels or dorms instead of the more pricey hotels. Joshua is a fellow American who grew up in Alabama. He's a guy who always carries a guitar with him anywhere we go. Ask him to play it and he would just laugh. He told me that carries it only to charm girls. He doesn't really know how to play it. Heck, he doesn't even know how to tune it. He always says to me that we need to fake it until we make it. It makes a lot of sense if you ask me. He told me how he considered his guitar his most prized possession because it is a limited edition Rainsong by WS 1001 Black Ice series. It is super expensive, but he managed to get it cheap from one of his backpacker friends. In his own words, "I would be dead before anyone could take this away from me," he jokingly said while stroking the neck of his guitar. We both laughed. Anyway, this is our 6th time visiting Southeast Asia. We would normally visit the more known locations in Thailand, Vietnam, and Bali in Indonesia. But this time, we both agreed that it was time to experience a different culture and experience. We are also intrigued by the rumors of demonic creatures called Aswang in our destination. Although we don't really believe in the supernatural, we are enamored by the thought of experiencing a culture where the myth of supernatural creatures like the Aswangs is the main tourist attraction. It was the morning of June 6 when we arrived at Roxas Airport. There was no direct flight to our destination, so we had to travel to Manila first and then fly to Roxas from there. Despite being tired, we have high hopes and are very much excited about our next adventure. Nothing prepared us for the horror that we would soon encounter in Capiz, Philippines. When we arrived, we immediately checked in at Betina Manor Inn. Despite it being one of the cheapest in the area, it is still way above our usual budget. Our strategy is to settle in and get acquainted with our fellow tourists who know the area better and get advice from them. We would transfer to the cheaper alternative as soon as we can. Betina Manor is a shitty place indeed. The online reviews are as accurate as they can get. Firstly, the area is in the red light district, so there are hookers everywhere. I get it that for some tourists who are looking for a short time, this place would be heaven. But for us who are genuinely looking to experience the culture, this is a deal breaker. As for the establishment itself, suffices to say that the bed is small, the sheets have stains, there is no shower and there is no flush for the toilet. That in itself is a horror story. Betina Manor, for all its faults, certainly makes up for the excellent customer service. Most of the staff are very friendly and will go the extra mile to make sure that your stay is enjoyable. All except for one guy. Romy is one of the attendants. He's one of those people that you would immediately sense that he's pure evil. When he looks at you, you know that he's thinking of something bad against you. In hindsight, I would say that this is the reason why he would not look anyone directly in the eyes. Because his eyes would expose his evil intention. Nonetheless, according to the other tourists, Romy is the man to talk to get cheaper accommodations somewhere away from the red light district. With this in mind, I know that sooner or later we would have to deal with him. After a few days, most of the other tourists that we saw talking to Romy have one by one already checked out of Betina Manor. While having breakfast, Joshua told me that he talked to Romy last night. The attendant offered a small nipa hut near the forest in Culajao Mangrove Eco Park. Though, there's currently only one vacant bed first. Joshua was asking me if it's okay if he goes there first because his fund is almost gone. He desperately needs to get a cheaper place to stay. I understand where Joshua is coming from because I myself am almost out of funds as well. I told Joshua that it's okay and I'll follow him there later when there's another vacancy. He tapped me in the back and thanked me. That afternoon, Joshua picked up his guitar and said his farewell. "See you there," I assured him. He smiled, slipped a piece of paper into my pocket, and replied, "See you soon, bro." After a few days, I finally got the courage to approach Romy and asked him if there was an available accommodation for me. He stopped what he was doing and looked at me from head to toe. He didn't answer my question and just got back to what he was doing. I am thinking that being a native, maybe he didn't understand what I'm saying, so I tapped him on the shoulder and asked him again. "I'm friends with Joshua, one of the guys that came with you a few days earlier." I slightly raised my voice and made sure that I'm pronouncing things slowly. Romy suddenly stopped what he was doing and faced me. By the look on his face, I get that he's pissed. "Fuck off, man," he blurted out. I was taken aback by his sudden hostility towards me. I looked around and saw new tourists looking at us with bewildered faces. I decided to back off and go to my room. I sat on the bed to think of what I did to be at the receiving end of Romy's wrath. I shook my head because I can't really think of anything. That's when I remember the piece of paper that Joshua slipped into my pocket. I carefully took it out and saw that written on it is an address. "Alright," I said to myself. "I'll bypass the middleman then." I decided to go straight to the address and ask for accommodation. That afternoon, I decided to pack my things up and check out. I found myself in a remote village 1 to 2 kilometers away from the forest. The moment I stepped into this small village, everyone stopped what they were doing and fixed their gaze on me. I thought that since the village was remote, maybe the people there were not accustomed to seeing foreigners like me. Then I remember that a lot of tourists transfer accommodation in this area, so that could not be the case. I kept walking as I ignored the stares that I got from the locals. As I scanned the surroundings, I noticed 3 middle-aged women dressed in black dresses. They have black scarves on their head, running in my direction. They stopped a few meters away from me and started shouting at me while raising their hand toward me. I could see hate in their eyes, more like the same as what I saw when Romy looked at me. Are they cursing me? I asked myself. I suddenly felt dizzy, perhaps from the heat and worrying about the situation that I got myself into. I decided to turn left and walk faster. I kept walking until I found myself in what looked like garbage dumped on the side of the road. I gasped and vomited from what I saw. I can't be mistaken, right there was a bloodied and broken Rainsong by WS-1001 Black Ice series guitar. Next to it were a few torn and smoldering backpacking bags that I saw other tourists were using. I saw blood splattered everywhere. I was petrified and didn't know what to do when I heard footsteps running in my direction. I dashed to the nearest pathway and walked slowly. I decided to pretend that I did not see those bloodied items. "What are you doing here?" a bald old man, probably in his 70s, asked me. He is accompanied by a few middle-aged men who were looking at me intently. I looked around me to make sure that they were talking to me. When I'm certain that I'm the one being questioned, I answered I'm hoping to find cheap accommodation. I bit my lips and thought about asking the old man about Joshua, but I decided against it. "I can help you with that." The old man looked at one of his companions and whispered something in their native dialect. After that, he turned his attention to me. "Tell me, are you looking for someone, perhaps your friend that went into this village?" His eyes are fierce as he waits for my answer. "No, I'm alone. I don't know anyone. I just tried my luck to find cheaper accommodation away from the city." I lied. "Okay, then 200 pesos per day, these 3 will accompany you to your hut," the old man motioned to his companion. I was thinking of refusing the offer and just going back to the city, but the way they looked at me got me on the edge. I can't think properly. It feels like I'm a lamb being led to the slaughter. I followed them to the hut. I did not go out of the hut the whole day. I did not eat because there was nothing to eat there. And I was too afraid to go out. Luckily there was a jug of water which I devoured. I am determined that I'll just wait for night time and I'll hide in the forest and I'll make a run for it. Throughout the day I heard men patrolling around my hut. They only left around 7 p.m. probably to eat. I could hear clearly that there was a celebration happening in the village. There was singing and dancing, although the song doesn't sound like a normal song because it gives me goosebumps. They were more like demonic chanting that you would see in horror movies. "Now's my chance," I said to myself. "I can't use my door because my door is facing the ceremony. Good thing that the hut was made of nipa straw." I silently made a hole in the nipa wall and threw my backpack outside. After that, I slipped my body into the hole. I waited for a minute to make sure that no one was looking in my direction. After that, I ran towards the edge of the jungle. I stopped and hid in one of the thick shrubs. I peeked in my hut and I was so relieved when I saw that it was perfect timing that I left immediately. There were around 10 men and 3 women dressed in black earlier approaching my hut. They suddenly stopped and 3 guys stripped naked. One of the old women passed a vessel containing what seemed like an oily liquid. The 3 naked guys started applying the liquid to their bodies. The rest of the men pulled out their jungle bolo. It is a short sword that the locals in the Philippines usually use when farming. The 3 old women started chanting and raised their hands toward the 3 naked men. One by one the 3 men changed into wild animals. One turned into a black oar, the other a huge rabid dog, and the last one turned into a python. I shivered at what I saw and panic sets in on me. I saw one of the old women pointing at my hut. After which, the 3 creatures started moving towards the hut. The other men armed with bolo positioned themselves near the door of my hut. I was so afraid that I dropped my backpack and made a run for it towards the jungle. I ran to the north until dawn. I did not stop for anything. Luckily I did not encounter any poisonous snakes. Although, I'm pretty sure that I'll get malaria or dengue if I survive there because I'm being swarmed by mosquitoes. I ended up in the nearest province called Aklan. From there, I called the embassy to report my friend Joshua missing. They said that it's very hard to keep track of backpackers because they jump from location to location. They assured me that Joshua will turn up soon in the neighboring provinces. I shook my head because deep inside, I know that something bad happened to him. I can't believe what I saw that night. Until this day I still question if what I really saw that night was real or not. There's one thing I'm sure of though, I'm lucky to be alive today.